that would like to, those who have missed that would like to watch it later on, we can absolutely make that possible. I'd like to welcome everybody. Today we have Rabbi Perman teaching, and we're going to be looking at the portion Chaye Sara. I'll turn over to Rabbi Perman.
Thank you. Rabbi, is it possible to split the screen so that the text is on one side and the optics are on the other?
Well, sort of.
Block out the whole screen
For
as well.
each person, you have to do your own controls to be able to see both. So once I share the screen, if you go to your top of your screen and click gallery view, then you'll still be able to see some of the boxes of people. Okay, but I can't do that for you. Everybody has to do that for their own.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I see a screen full of boxes. Right.
Yeah. So do you want me to share the screen? So you do it.
Yes, and then put the text on first. So.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so let me don't put it on quite yet. Hold it one sec. Okay, let me just introduce it a little bit. The name. Wait a minute. We didn't do the blessing. And I'd like to announce that today's kippah is from the wedding of Carrie and Matthew, January 3rd, 2015.
Mazel tov.
We have a way of commemorating all these events.
Belated Mazel tov.
Minus the yarmulkes, yes, yarmulke memory it's called.
Do a
Okay,
memorial.
so let's join in the blessing. Baruch atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher v'samim v'tzalsam
Ready, Torah.
Amen.
Amen.
Now, we've elevated reading to learning. It's a new level. And the name of the reading today seems very paradoxical because it's about Abraham, except it's called the life of Sarah, Chaye Sara. And it begins with, what else? The death of Sarah. So it tells us very little. Now, good question here would be, why begin a narrative called the life of somebody with the death of somebody? And one wise person observed that how we face death is a commentary on how we face life. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. But I think we can even go deeper, because in the Jewish tradition, the traditional commentators, and also within the Jewish mystical tradition, there's a practice of calling things by the opposite of what you think they should be. For example, a cemetery is called Beit Chaim or Beit Olam, an everlasting house, a house of life. How is it a house of life? Well, it's a house of life because they're referring to eternal life. They refer to a blind person with the Aramaic words Sagei Nahor, one who sees a great light. Now, I don't know what a blind person really sees, but maybe there is an illumination or an understanding of what's going on in the world and what's going on before that person. And perhaps that's an accurate description. So these are the opposites. We begin with the death of Sarah. And the purpose of the death of that reading is to get to the funeral arrangements. So now let's put the text on the screen on to chapter 23, please. Coming up. Bingo. Okay, somebody want to read?
The life of Sarah was 100 years and 20 years and 7 years.
Okay, we know. If you're going to read, I'm going to interrupt you a lot, but we'll get you.
Okay. Okay.
These are funny numbers, and they don't necessarily reflect actual numbers, because if you live in that time in that place, this is how you refer to things. Big number is a lot, small number is a little. But in this case, 127 years. Let's keep going.
Okay. And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba. My cousins live in Kiryat Arba,
How about
which is Hebron, the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to eulogize Sarah and to bewail her. And Abraham arose from before his dead, and he spoke to the sons of Heth, saying, I am a stranger and an inhabitant with you. Give me burial property with you. So
okay, pause, please. So, Kiryat Arba, where your cousins live, is near modern day Hebron, in the land of Canaan, which is now called, part of it is the West Bank. And Abraham comes to mourn. He is a mourner. And he speaks to the sons of Heth. Who are the sons of Heth? They are Hittites, which is why they're called sons of Heth. The modern Turkish people claim their descent from the Hittites. I don't know much about that, but that's what they say. So let's continue, please.
I am a stranger and an inhabitant with you. Give me burial property with you so that I may bury my dead from before me.
Okay, now what difference does stranger make here? And the reason is that he's saying I'm an immigrant. I'm an immigrant. And it's quite possible, although we don't know this for sure, that non-Hittites were not allowed to own land. There are a lot of countries in the world that put restrictions on how much land a foreigner can buy. Can you think of any? I think there are a number. You have to have some citizenship link. You have to. It's like the Chinese rules for business, where you have to have a partnership with someone native in order to do business there. So he says that, I realize I'm an immigrant. I just got here, but I need to bury her. And continue, please.
And the sons of Heth answered Abraham, saying to him, listen to us, my Lord. You are a prince of God in our midst. In the choicest of our graves, bury your dead. None of us will withhold his grave from you to bury your dead. Wow.
Yeah.
That means they were familiar with Abraham.
Well, they're also flattering him.
Okay.
And the reason they're flattering him is this is a negotiation. It doesn't look like a negotiation, but it's a negotiation.
So they're going to charge him extra.
More than that.
Okay.
It's simply a different way of doing business. You flatter your guest. Jane and I lived in Ankara for a year. And one of the great things that could happen to anybody is to live in another culture anywhere and understand that the world doesn't operate in the same way. And certainly in business practices, it didn't. The most traditional business practices there were in the bazaar. So if you went to the bazaar in Istanbul and say you were looking at a rug, the first thing they would do is not show you rugs. The first thing they would do is offer you coffee. And you sit down and you talk to the proprietor and he gets to know you. This is not how we're used to doing business. And it's sometimes jarring to someone who might have graduated from Wharton and had a different idea of how this is supposed to be done. But this is flattering. And it says, nobody here is going to withhold their property from you. So let's keep going.
And Abraham arose and prostrated himself to the people of the land, to the sons of Heth. And he spoke with them, saying, if it is your will that I will bury my dead from before me, listen to me and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zohar. That he may
Son of Zohar is the guy who owns the property. And this is the property that he wants. We'll go into why in a minute. But he asks the other Hittites to please intercede for him on his behalf.
that he may give me the Machpelah, the cave, which belongs,
It's Machpelah.
Machpelah, sorry.
Yeah, Machpelah. Give me this cave. So this is interesting. This tells you something about their burial practices, right? They got buried in caves. Definition of a cave is a valley with a roof. And this is the cave. Okay.
Which belongs to him, which is at the end of his field, for a full price. Let him give it to me in your midst for burial property. Now Ephron was sitting in the midst of the sons of Heth, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Heth, of all those who had come into the gate of his city, saying, no, my lord, listen to me. I have given you the field and the cave that is in it. I have given it to you. Before the eye of the sons of my people, I have given it to you. Bury your dead. And
so what he's saying is, I have this property and you want it. And yeah, you can have it. Yeah, it's not that expensive. That's his way of saying that. Keep going.
And Abraham prostrated himself before the people of the land. And he spoke to Ephron in the hearing of the people of the land, saying, but if only you would listen to me, I am giving the money for the field. Take it from me, and I will bury my dead there.
Okay, so he's fairly insistent. No, I'm not gonna take any gifts from you. You have to let me pay for this.
And Ephron replied to Abraham, saying to him, my lord, listen to me. A piece of land worth 400 shekels of silver. What is it between me and you? Bury your dead.
Okay, so what's happening here, somebody?
He introduces a price.
Right, that was before it was that. It's nothing. Now it's only something worth 400 shekels of silver. So you can have it.
A mere pittance.
Exactly.
And Abraham listened to Ephron, and Abraham weighed out to Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the sons of Heth, 400 shekels of silver, accepted by the merchant.
Okay, what it's saying is it's a recognized standard currency. Yeah, okay, let's keep going.
Rabbi, question. What
Yeah.
would happen if Abraham accepted the offer of free land in the negotiation?
It would probably be seen as an insult, and the guy would be from a boorish person, and nobody really took it seriously. Yeah, on either side.
And he wouldn't own the land.
Pardon?
And he would not own it, so it could easily be taken down.
That is a much more important point, a far more important point. He has to have clear title to that land. So let's continue.
And so the field of Ephron, which was at Machpelah, facing Mamre, was established as Abraham's possession. This included the field and the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within its entire border around.
Okay, are any of you lawyers? No. Okay, this is a legal document. Because when you take title to a piece of land, it very carefully describes everything you can say about that piece of land, including the trees that are growing there. And this has to be recorded in this way. And what's more, this is repeated several times here and elsewhere. So it's a document that has very, very significant meaning for not only for Abraham, but for the future. And I'll get into the future in a minute. Let's finish chapter 23.
It was to Abraham as a possession before the eyes of the sons of Heth in the presence of all who had come within the gate of this city. And afterwards, Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing Mamre, which is Hebron in the land of Canaan. And the field and the cave within it were established to Abraham as burial property, purchased from the sons of Heth.
Okay,
I'm done.
so I was curious, how did he zero in on that piece of property? And excuse me, I went to my best source, which again is Sefer HaAgadah, and it tells me that there are two Midrashim on why he chose that piece of land. Now, this is entirely fanciful, but there are always values behind it. One thing was Abraham was walking around and looking at different properties. Everybody here has looked for properties. And he saw the cave and he walked in and he smelled something. He smelled something that was a wonderful fragrance wafting toward him. And he went deeper into the cave. And there he saw a well-lit chamber. And on a shelf were two bodies. One was the body of Adam HaRishon, the first Adam. Next to him was Eve. And he immediately took that as a sign that this was a special part of God's creation. And he needed to have this place and not any other. Now, another thing the Midrash touched on was further down the line. It was established that this would be the burial place of the patriarchs and matriarchs. And there is an imaginary conversation that takes place with Abraham's grandson, Jacob. Actually, grandsons, Jacob and Esau. And all of the narrative about Jacob and Esau at the beginning is about Esau, as you know, rejecting the birthright, right? So this conversation between Jacob and Esau, and we're told that Jacob had sold his property, which were his flocks. He was a shepherd. And he received gold in return. And he had a meeting with his brother Esau, and he said, I'll give you a choice. You can have the gold, or you can have the cave of Machpelah that belonged to our grandfather. And Esau, running true to form, said, what do I need? What do I need it for? I don't need a cave. I'll take the gold. And then he signed a document saying, I take the gold and I renounce Machpelah. Why is this important? Because it's written later and it states unequivocally that the children of Esau have no claim on the land. Whereas earlier, you have Abraham's purchase of the land. And that establishes not only his claim, but his future descendants. Mm-hmm. And there's a famous commentary by Rashi at the beginning of Genesis that says it's important to understand that Israel owned this land. It was given to Israel, and Israel took possession of it. How did it take possession of it? By the purchase of Machpelah. And this goes down through the centuries, and it's so important. There are two major themes going through this reading. One of them is about the land and securing title to the land. And the other is about offspring, where God says, I will promise you that your descendants will be like the grains of sand on the beach and the stars in the heaven and uncountable, innumerable. All this will be yours, and you will be the father of a great house. So the land is something very, very important, and it's something that ties the Jewish people to the land of Israel. Let's start 24 now. How about another reader? Judy, you're the guest today. You read.
Thank you. And Abraham was old, advanced in days, and the Lord had blessed Abraham with everything. And Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his house, who ruled over all that was his, please place your hand under my thigh, and I will adjure you by the Lord, the God of the heaven and the God of earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose midst I dwell.
Okay. Now, he has a major domo, so to speak, who manages his house. His name is Eliezer. His full name is Damasek Eliezer, means Eliezer from Damascus. And Damascus obviously was around in those days too. And he says very seriously to him, I want you to find a wife for Isaac. And this, place your hand under my thigh was the gesture of vowing to take an oath.
Looking for a nice Jewish girl?
This is, yeah, exactly. So
Rebecca.
Yep. So this
Sounds
is
good to me.
right. He makes Eliezer swear that this is what he'll do. What's interesting is that Eliezer isn't Jewish, doesn't seem to be, but then another source says he's some kind of half brother to Abraham. So maybe the Eliezer, the Damascus part of his name simply is a birthplace and nothing else. But we have to assume that he is, because he has to know what Abraham wants. And he says, go to the land of my birthplace. Let's keep going there, please.
Okay, where'd they end up?
4.
But you should go to my land and to my birthplace, and you shall take a wife for my son, for Isaac. And the servant said to him, perhaps the woman will not wish to go after me to this land. Shall I return your son to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to him, beware, lest you return my son back there. The Lord,
I want you to go to my birthplace, and I want you to get a son for me there. And he says, okay, suppose I find her, but she doesn't want to come. Does that mean your son goes back there? And Abraham says, no way. 7.
the Lord God of the heavens, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke about me and who swore to me, saying, to your seed will I give this land. He will send his angel before you, and you shall take a wife for my son from there.
Okay,
And
this means, listen, Eliezer, this is a direct order. Pay attention. Okay.
And if the woman will not wish to go after you, you will be absolved of this, my oath. Only do not return my son back there. And the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and he swore to him concerning this matter.
Okay. Our text coming up on 16. It's growing. Look, 10, look at that. It's growing, growing. Okay.
Ah,
Magic.
and
Harry,
this,
magic. Okay.
and the servant took 10 camels of his master's camels, and he went, and all the best of his master was in his hand. And he arose, and he went to Aram Naharim, to the city of Nahar. And he made the camels.
Okay. Well, we know that they had camels. That's pretty clear. And so you have this caravan going to the city of Nahor. Aram Naharaim is the area, and Nahor is the specific destination. Okay.
And he made the camels kneel outside the city beside the well of water at eventide, at the time the maidens go out to draw water. And he said, "O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please cause to happen to me today and perform loving kindness with my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the water fountain, and the daughters of the people of the city are coming out to draw water. And it will be..."
There was a fixed time of day when he knew that the women were coming out to draw waters. Obviously, they were going to be young women because they had to be strong enough to carry the water. And they all came out at a particular time, probably tied to mealtime, but also probably a social thing. So they all gathered around the well, and he got to look at the field.
Did Rebecca bring it just out to him, or was she taking care of everybody?
She doesn't know he's there yet.
Okay. And it will be that the maiden to whom I will say, "Lower your pitcher and I will drink." And she will say, "Drink, and I will also water your camels." Her have you designated for your servant, for Isaac. And through her may I know that you have performed loving kindness with my master.
Okay, so he sets conditions. If such and such happens, if such and such happens, then that's the person, and that'll be a sure sign that that's the person.
Ah, now he had not yet finished speaking.
Right, exactly. So let's continue.
And behold, Rebekah came out, who had been born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, and her pitcher was on her shoulder. Now the maiden was of very comely appearance, a virgin, and no man had been intimate with her. And she went down to the fountain, and she filled her pitcher and went up.
Now, wait, this is something important for today.
This is Isaac's first cousin? She's
Yeah,
Isaac's.
absolutely, that's discussed, because what's as obvious as a kick in the teeth here is that, and it's a big surprise, and it would certainly be a big surprise to fundamentalists and evangelicals, is that the biblical definition of a virgin is a young woman who hasn't been married.
Okay.
Wow, what a pause.
Whoa.
She is an unmarried young woman.
Okay.
Rabbi Boxman, you must have done research on this stuff. Rabbi Boxman,
Yeah, one second. I'm having trouble figuring out how to.
sorry.
There we go. What was the question?
In women's studies, did you ever discuss the concept of virginity in the Bible?
I didn't actually take a class on women in the Bible when I was in a rabbinical school.
Yeah, okay, well, apparently what it seems like from the text is that a virgin is an unmarried woman.
They took a lot for granted in those days.
And then it additionally says, and by the way, she didn't know anything about men, or she never had a man.
And how did they know all that?
Oh, that's a good question too.
Yeah, but if she's marries and she's not a virgin, she can be subject to execution, can she not?
If she's not married, if she is married and she's
Not a virgin
if
when
she-
she's married.
yeah, right. That means that she would have been previously married and would have had to have
Well-
an official divorce from her first husband, right? And then she
Well,
would not, then she would not be married. There's a vestige of this when we fill out a marriage contract, a ketubah. In the traditional ketubah, do you want to explain that?
In the ketubah, so in the ketubah, right, the woman is referred to as a virgin. Betula.
Right.
Right.
And she's a virgin unless, what are the next two categories? There's betulta and giorta,
Right. And so,
unless she's been divorced,
right. Or converted
right? Or an almanata,
or a widow.
or a widow. Yeah. So, this has enormous implications for our society and the way it works. Somehow virginity just ain't what it used to be. People thought it was.
They never read the rules.
Yeah, the rule, these rules pretty much say that a virgin is an unmarried woman, period, full stop. Okay, let's continue. That got it.
And the servant ran toward her and he said, "Please let me sip a little water from your pitcher." And she said, "Drink, my lord." And she hastened and lowered her pitcher to her hand and she gave him to drink. And she finished giving him to drink. And she said, "I will also draw for your camels until they have finished drinking."
Wow.
Wow. What
She-
a good,
she
what a
fit the
woman.
bill, and then some. Because she took in the camels too. She is kind to animals.
Right.
She said she
There's
will.
10 camels.
Yeah, and camels. Well, animals.
10.
Camels are animals.
And this is right. And this is what he was looking for, correct? Right. Somebody
Right.
who was kind, who offered to water the animals as well.
Right, and kindness would be a mark of the right woman for Isaac.
Right. And she hastened and she emptied her pitcher into the trough and she ran again to the well to draw water and she drew for all his camels. And the man was astonished at her, standing silent, waiting to know whether the Lord had caused his way to prosper or not.
I bet he was surprised.
Now it came about when the camels had finished drinking that the man took a golden nose ring weighing half a shekel and 2 bracelets for her hands weighing 10 gold shekels. Aha. And he said, "Whose daughter are you? Please tell me, is there a place for us for lodging in your father's house?" And she said to him, "I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Micah, whom she bore to Nahor." And she said to him, "Both straw and fodder are plentiful with us. There is also a place to lodge." And the man kneeled and prostrated himself to the Lord. I found the woman. I found her.
So
But how come he gives her jewels before he even knows who she is?
She was kind.
well, because I guess he got the sign, It could be also, it's interesting that one of the items is a nose ring, which doesn't resonate so much with us today, unless you work at Starbucks. It's maybe, and I'm just conjecturing myself. Maybe it's a kind of engagement present, not a wedding present, an engagement present, just to start things, to narrow the focus.
Sounds like a bribe.
Well, could be. It's you get 3 pieces of gold jewelry. I don't know what that's worth in those days. It's interesting. Gold was the medium exchange even back then. We're talking thousands of years ago.
You want me to continue?
And it does continue. It does continue. The only thing, I have friends who say they put money into gold, and I say, okay. But my vision is what happens the morning after the big crash. Are you going to walk into Publix with a Kruger end and say, "Please, I want a bottle of milk"? I mean, I don't know what to do with that gold.
You make nose rings out of it.
Say again?
You make
Make nose rings.
Make nose rings. Go in- and go into the nose ring business. That's it.
Jim,
Yeah,
Jim, me.
okay.
I would say that he had an assignment to find somebody for Isaac. He found right away that this woman answered the description. And now the next step is to find a place to stay. And he's making a business arrangement by handing her the jewelry.
Right. It's a good faith deposit.
Yep.
In a way. Well, in those days, a marriage really was much more of a business arrangement than it is now. Don't forget the whole idea of romantic love isn't that old. And while it's important in Western civilization,
Right.
when you read Shakespeare, it's not important in many other traditions. It's a transaction. It's a financial transaction. But what I like here in this story is that Rebecca has a say in it. She has a veto. She may not dictate the terms, but she can say, I don't want it. And she's not dragged into a horrible marriage like, the stories we hear about Saudi Arabia and places like that where they do such things with child marriages. It seems pretty eyes wide open.
Rabbi, it was a financial transaction because the woman was property. So in terms of finding a husband or a mate for her, the transaction was, I've got a piece of property. Are you interested?
Yeah, but I think this piece of property is more than a piece of property because she has veto power.
And still today in Orthodox marriages where they are pre-arranged, the woman still does, in most cases, unless it's very extreme, does have a say to say yes or no. So still to today, it is arranged, but like here, the woman does have a say. The other thing to recall, if anyone remembers in Fiddler on the Roof, the discussion about how Tevi and his wife were in an arranged marriage, but that the love developed, right? That it may not have started as love, but it concluded with love. And so it's a different understanding. We in modern Western society think of love as you have to be in love in order to get married. And it's sort of a different understanding that love develops, that's not the reason you get married. It's sort of a nice side effect of it.
Got another message on my wrist.
Good point. Good point. Again, what we're all saying over and over is that romantic love is the way we understand it is not what's happening here. Okay, let's go on.
And he said, blessed is the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his loving kindness and his truth from my master. As for me, the Lord led me on the road to the house of my master's kinsman. And the maiden ran and she told her mother's house what had happened. Now Rebecca.
Do we have the right page up here? Yes.
It's 27?
Yeah, we're okay.
28, okay, 29. Now Rebecca had a brother whose name was Laban, and Laban ran to the man outside to the fountain. And it came to pass when he saw the nose ring and the bracelets on his sister's hand, and when he heard the words of his sister Rebecca saying, so did the man speak to me, that he came to the man, and behold, he was standing over the camels at the fountain. And he said, come, you who are blessed of the Lord, why should you stand outside when I have cleared the house and a place for the camels? So the man came to the house and unmuzzled his camels, and he gave straw and fodder to the camels and water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. And food was set before him to eat, but he said, I will not eat until I have spoken my words. And he said, speak. And he said, I am Abraham's servant. And the Lord blessed my master exceedingly, and he became great. And he gave him sheep and cattle, silver and gold, manservants and maidservants, camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master after she had become old, and he gave him all that he possesses. And my master adjured me, saying, you shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell. Instead, you must go to my father's house and to my family and take a wife for my son.
Okay, there are a number of assumptions here that are important. One is that Abraham's name is immediately recognized because he's a relative. Two, marriage within the family was not uncommon. I mean, even up to modern times, you had cousins marrying cousins, with very little, without much of a problem there. And somehow you trusted your family, and family didn't mean nuclear family with, husband, wife, 2.2 children and a dog, right? A family was an extended tribe. And so this is, and immediately he's responding to Eliezer and with all these other gifts for Abraham. So we are now well on the way to an agreement, obviously.
And I said to my master, perhaps the woman will not follow me. And he said to me, the Lord with whom I walked will send his angel with you and make your way prosper. And you shall take a wife for my son from my family and from my father's house. You will then be absolved from my oath when you come to my family. And if they do not give her to you, you will be absolved from my oath. So I came to the fountain and I said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, if you desire to prosper my way upon which I am going, behold, I'm standing by the water fountain. When a maiden comes out to draw water, I will say to her, please give me a little water to drink from your pitcher. And if she will say to me, you too may drink, and I will also draw water for your camels, she is the woman whom the Lord has designated for my master's son.
Okay, we're getting a step-by-step playback of what
Boy,
happened.
are we ever. It's like,
Yeah, does that strike you?
yeah.
Wow.
I said, I thought I just read that. I had not yet finished speaking thus in my heart, and behold, Rebecca came out with her pitcher on her shoulder, and she went down to the fountain and drew water. And I said to her, please give me to drink. And she hastened and lowered the pitcher from her. And she said, drink, and I will also water your camels. So I drank, and she also watered the camels. And I asked her, and I said, whose daughter are you? And she replied, the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him. And I placed the nose ring on her nose and the bracelets on her hands. And I kneeled and prostrated myself to the Lord, and I blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who led me on the true path to take the daughter of my master's brother for his son. And now, if you will do loving kindness and truth with my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, and I will return to the right or to the left. And Laban and Bethuel answered and said, the matter has emanated from the Lord. The matter has emanated from the Lord. We cannot speak to you either good, bad or good. Behold, Rebecca is before you. Take her and go. Let her be a wife for your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. Now it came to pass when Abraham's servant heard the words that he prostrated himself on the ground to the Lord. There's a lot of repetition there.
There's a lot of repetition, but it's got to have a reason. Nothing's without a reason here. So why recap the whole thing? Anybody?
You want me to continue?
I guess so. No comment.
And the servant took out silver articles and golden articles and garments, and he gave them to Rebecca, and he gave delicacies to her brother and to her mother. And they ate and drank, he and the men who were with him, and they lodged. And they arose in the morning, and he said, send me away to my master. And her brother and her mother said, let the maiden stay with us a year or 10 months. Afterward, she will go. But he said to them, do not delay me, since the Lord has made my way prosper. Send me away, and I will go to my master. And they said, let us call the maiden and ask her. And they summoned Rebekah, and they said to her, will you go with this man? And she said, I will go.
See, this is the difference between property and
Okay.
and a negotiation for marriage here.
So she agreed. So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, our sister, may you become thousands of myriads, and may your seed inherit the cities of their enemies. And Rebekah and her maidens rose.
That's the blessing.
Right, and rode on the camels, and they followed the man, and the servant took Rebekah and left.
Mhm.
And now,
Jane has a question.
Yeah, am I, I'm unmuted?
Yep, we can hear you.
No, I just wanted to answer Jim's question about why it was repeated. What I know from my limited Bible study is that anything that's repeated is for emphasis, number one. And
right,
number two, it shows the importance of Laban, because the servant is telling him the story. You know, we've heard the story, but Laban didn't hear it. He wanted to make sure that he got it exactly right and understood what was going on. Those are the things that occur to me.
Who was late?
So he gave him this play-by-play description for that purpose, and that makes a lot of sense. Thanks, Jane.
right. Now Isaac was on his way coming from Be'er Lachairah, and he dwelt in the land of the south. And Isaac went forth to pray in the field towards evening, and he lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, camels were approaching. And Rebekah lifted her eyes and saw Isaac, and she let herself down from the camel. And she said to the servant, who is that man walking in the field towards us? And the servant said, he is my master. And she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. And Isaac brought her to the tent of Sarah, his mother. And he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. And Isaac was comforted for the loss of his mother.
Sweet ending, yeah.
Sweet, right.
This story implies that there is a very strong attachment between Isaac and Sarah, right? But that was not defined. You know, in the title of the parasha, it's like Chaya Sarah. But okay, so the only thing it's inferred here is that Isaac was very attached to his mother, and that he was very quickly consoled by marrying Rebekah.
Right, that's what mom would have wanted.
He brings her to her tent.
Yeah.
Not to a tent of her own.
Right.
There's actually a midrash that more so talks about the love of Sarah for Isaac, that when Abraham wakes up, it says for the almost sacrifice, it says that Abraham woke up early in the morning. And the midrash, the rabbis say that the reason he woke up early in the morning was to get out before Sarah noticed, because if she she would have put a stop to it and would have messed up the plans. And then it says that when he told her the news, when he returned, he had to make sure that she wasn't on the roof. They talk about where she was standing, because she would have fallen off. She would have been so in shock and scared and upset. So I think there was a deep bond between Isaac and Sarah, even though it might have not been said explicitly here.
Right, and that actually mirrored the deep bond between Rebekah and her sons later.
Yeah.
Rabbi Boxman, did Abraham ever return to Sarah during her lifetime after the Akedah?
Well, it wouldn't.
Or did he wander in at the burial time?
So again, it's hard to, if you just look at the biblical text, it would appear not, because it just goes right. The first thing that you hear at the end of that story is that Sarah died, right? Rabbinic text, some of the rabbis think that he did return, and it was this shock of hearing what he almost did to their son that killed her. But again, we don't know for sure.
Besides that, the last sentence of the parsha before on the Akedah is that Abraham didn't go back. He went to Beersheba.
Right.
Where was Adar at that time?
In Beersheba.
Oh.
He went to Hagar and not back to Sarah. That's something that I read.
That's what we spoke about last week, right? Yep.
Right. There's also an interesting midrash. Not only what was Sarah's reaction, or could have been her reaction to the Akedah, but also Isaac's reaction. And there's a midrash that says that after they came down from the mountain and Isaac realized what he had, the danger he had just been in, that he was traumatized. He never spoke to Abraham again.
Yeah.
Never spoke to him again. He spent the rest of his life without talking to his father.
Wasn't that also a consequence of that trauma that he stuttered?
Stuttered?
Moses is the one who stuttered.
Moses.
Oh, but not Isaac.
No,
Okay.
Moses stuttered, yeah.
Rabbi, do we get an insight into how marriage is handled? That all you have to do is go to someone's tent, consummate the marriage, and then you're married. There was no rabbinic intercession there.
Right. Well, there doesn't seem to be any attempt to make this a detailed analysis of how you get married. But that's definitely part of whatever it says in the text is part of it. She is clearly welcomed into the clan that she already belongs to. And her primary job is going to be to make babies and raise them. That doesn't seem to change much over the centuries. And the transaction at the beginning is probably the most telling, because that's the most unusual for us.
Rabbi, coming back to your point about Chaye Sarah not being so much about the life of Sarah, when it says in the first few sentences that Abraham bewailed her, the word bewailed is from the Hebrew liv kotah, and the chaf in liv kotah, to weep, and the kaf in liv kotah is one of the few letters in the Bible that is written in miniature in parchment. And there is a rabbinic interpretation of the smallness of that letter, meaning that because of the greatness of Sarah, Abraham was comforted and didn't cry as much as one cries when you have much unfinished business with someone who died in your family. In other words, it's harder to grieve when you have great regrets about what you did during someone's life. But Abraham did not, he admired Sarah so much and felt in his way good about what he had done with her that he didn't cry a lot. I have found that useful in dealing with grief in my life.
Thank you. That's fantastic. I think I might have known that at one time or another, but I didn't remember it. What you're referring to is the way the Hebrew text is inscribed, and it's called the Masoretic text. It was a particular generation or a few generations of scribes who meticulously copied over and over and over again the same. They were human copying machines, and if the letter was larger, they made it larger, smaller, and then of course they had to attach meaning to these little distortions, and they came up with some great ones, and this is one of my favorites too. So thanks, Abe. That was wonderful.
Well, we've come to the conclusion for today. Our Shabbat morning worship has begun. So I want to thank you, Rabbi Perman, for leading us in another wonderful Torah study today. Thank you, everybody, for your participation. We will look forward to seeing you this evening. We actually have a Havdalah concert, so please join us for that. That's going to be on, I believe it's on Zoom and live stream, and Facebook Live. And then we'll see you back here next Saturday.
And thank you, Rabbi Waxman, for all your help. This wouldn't happen without you.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you. It was wonderful seeing all of you and being back at Temple Shalom for a little bit.
You're always welcome.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm sorry that we had met. I didn't realize who you were. And it's wonderful to see Temple Shalom again.
I hope we'll
Rabbi Waxman
everyone.
is
Bye-bye.
a great acquisition to our tribe.
That's wonderful.
Right.
Without any camels.
Bye.
Bye.